Well, today we welcome to the show Bill Gemaehlich. He is a longtime friend. Well, first, welcome, Bill.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here, Todd.
Well, it's interesting. I sometimes interview people I don't know. I interview people I sort of know, and you're one of the rare ones of somebody I know very, very well. Um, I, you're in my inner circle. You know things about me. I know things about you, and I'm excited because this is the kind of interview where I want people to know what I know. And so it's interesting. Some of these questions I ask, I already know the answer to, and others I need reminding, and some I'm just very curious. So, but my hope here is that everyone will learn the man that I've got to know. I don't even know how long we've known each other now, almost 20 years. Is that probably right?
At least 20.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So let's start with the beginning, and that is uh, raised in the Northwest. But talk a little bit about your childhood, where you grew up, tell a little bit about your family situation. If that turns into a testimony of coming to faith, go with that. But let's let everybody catch up from the beginning.
Great. Well, I grew up in Southern Oregon, which is the big town there is Medford, Oregon. Back in those days in the 70s and early to mid 80s, it was probably 50,000 people.
Mm.
That county now has about 100,000, so it's growing. My parents were from that area. They served in the Air Force. My dad and I was born in Texas, but we landed back in Oregon. There's no economy there unless, in those days, unless you were a logger or worked in the pear orchard
Uh,
uh, world. Harry and David, that's their big area. So my dad, he had picked pears as a child from 10 years up. So when he got out of the Air Force, he was picking pears. My mom was packing pears. And so
mm,
they were in the pear industry. And they realized to make it, you had to create your own economy. So my dad went to school, got his tax accountant license, an enrolled agent, I think is what he was referred to, sort of like a CPA. And he opened a business there in our small little town of Jacksonville, Oregon. And at the age of about 12 and 13, I was helping on Saturdays, making photocopies of people's tax returns. And so I got involved with business very early. Another thing they did to earn money was they put in a campground because back in those days, people would travel with travel trailers and campers, especially in the 70s before the gas crisis. And so at 13, they said, "Hey, you want to learn to be a businessman?" I'm like, "Sure. What do you want me to do?" Well, they sent me out to collect the rent. And boy, was that interesting at 13 years old.
wow.
Uh, I met a lot of interesting people, funny characters, everything from just good people. I met a retired madam one day collecting her rent. That was just everything in between there and ministers, I'd come. So I learned at an early age how to operate business. And then at age 15, I opened my first store. It was called the back porch and art gallery. And I was on the Chamber of Commerce at 15 years old there in Jacksonville, Oregon. Uh, Went to school in the town there, and then went to a Catholic parochial school and high school uh, in Medford, Oregon. And my first couple of years of college was at Southern Oregon State. And while I was studying, going to school, one of my dad's employees at the accounting firm uh, led me to Christ. But prior to that, one of the things I would do, I would open the mail, and I opened up an envelope, and in it was it was mailed to the campground, covered wagon campground. There was a yellow tract of how to become a Christian. And as a Catholic, the only thing I was missing was the gospel. I had never heard that it's finished. And that was the missing piece for me. And so I read this tract, I prayed the prayer, and I literally actually felt a kind of a sensation when I prayed it. I didn't know that I was saved. About 9 months later, and that one of my dad's employees walked me through the gospel story, and we prayed again. And so
And
uh, I've been walking with Christ ever since. And
wow. So you and your family were Catholic. Was there any conversion or trying to of like, hey, guess what? I'm a Christian now. You should be too. Or how did that work with family dynamics from going from Catholicism to Christianity?
right. My mom's family was Catholic. My dad's family were Lutheran. So I did. Well, I got saved, and it was kind of the Jesus People movement took place in, I think, the late 60s, early 70s. So this was a decade later, kind of
Okay.
the early 80s, that hit the Pacific Northwest. Many Catholics actually came to Christ during that time. And our pastor was John Corson, the Applegate Christian Fellowship, which ended up being quite a large mega church in a small little area where demographically it wasn't possible, but God did it. So yeah, I came home and said, "Hey, okay, mom and dad, I know Jesus. Let's get on with it." And it didn't go over real well, to answer your question.
Yeah.
So they thought I was a religious nut, and especially when they saw my dad saw on my check register that I was tithing. And I heard him one day, "We've got to get this kid out of that cult," you know. And
Okay, so so let me just I'm trying to paint the picture. I've seen a picture of you in your 20s with the hair and the whole things, but were you a hippie or did you become a Jesus hippie? Like, tell me your personality before and after you.
yeah, we we kind of missed the hippie movement a little bit. I suppose that age group was maybe 4 or 5 years older than me, so we really weren't true hippies. Maybe want to be hippies.
Okay,
So we were in what you would call, I guess, the generation of certainly the sexual revolution, that generation. And of course the thing was uh, who has a joint to smoke this week, you know. So we
yeah,
were pseudo hippies, I guess, but we had kind of missed that whole movement where you would live in a commune and that type of thing.
yeah.
Yeah,
But you're still the Northwest, which now this is a Southerner saying this,
yeah.
but even if you just live up there, you're already hippie-ish to us down here in the South.
Oh,
So you still
totally.
have the culture of it, even though you may not be by definition, but you probably lived in a more laid back, and I'm going to get to that in a minute when we talk
Hmm.
about theology, but even just your lifestyle, like it's how do you define the attitude of the Northwest, and what did you grow up? What culture is that?
Yeah. Well, it was, of course, you know, Pacific Northwest, when the weather is good, it happens outside.
Yeah.
So yes, we hiked trails, climbed mountains, rafted rivers. So I was kind of an outdoorsman, I guess, a young outdoorsman. And I had a big beard, and like you said, the big, super big hair. I think the Jackson Fives were jealous of my hair, probably.
It
Big,
was
thick.
big.
It was very, very big hair. And but life happened outside. You'd go hunting and fishing and that type of thing. I did have my own raft, like I was saying, so was kind of an amateur guide for the down the Rogue River.
Okay.
And then each year we would go to Crater Lake. You take a boat out to Wizard Island, you hike it, and you come back out, and it's quite a wilderness hike. And then we climb Mount McLaughlin and that type of thing. But life was more laid back, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm not trying to write your story, but I'm going to ask the
Hmm.
question like this is how you were thinking. But so you go to school, get a degree, you already have this business knowledge that's passed down from your dad and experiences. Are you thinking, okay, I'm going to start life and my goal is to make as much money as possible? What was your mindset as you travel into your 20s of just like, here's what I am meant to do? Or did you struggle with that question? Or was it money first? Like, how did you think coming into your young 20s?
Yeah, for me, I was kind of geared toward making as much money as I could. I didn't know what a yuppie was. One day I came by my parents' house to visit them, and my mom had been watching the news, and she goes, "Honey, I think you're a yuppie. I was probably 23 years old. I'm like, what the heck? I didn't
Eh,
know what it was. She'd been watching it. She goes, well, it's young urban professionals. And I thought, oh, that's what I want to be.
sure, I'll be that.
Yeah, it sounds good. Uh, and I ended up, uh, in university, you would take some of the tests to see what you're academically inclined toward and that type of thing. And for me, it was business, but also, and this is after I became a Christian, so I've been walking with Christ for maybe 2.5 years, and it kept coming up on these tests. I took two of them that I would make a good minister, and I totally turned 180 degrees. I thought, no way do I want to be a minister, because to be a ministry, you have to be poor, and it just wasn't in what I viewed my life as being a poor minister. But I did love ministry. I just had a hunger for it from the get-go, to be involved with missions, going to Mexico and this type of thing. We did street evangelism. Uh, we would go to Ashland, Oregon, and paint our faces up like mimes and do evangelical skits to then share the gospel. So thought from the very early age, I wanted to somehow combine ministry desire that I had with some business acumen that I had. My dad really wanted me to grow up and be a CPA. I had no desire to do that. I found it stifling and boring, and but I like business. And so from that point on, my first job was working for, at that time, Taco Bell Corporate, which was owned by PepsiCo back in the 80s. So I relocated to Southern California in 1986, and that was my first corporate job.
Okay, I need I'm gonna that's this fits both ways, whether we're talking about the Northwest or the Southwest
Hmm.
as well. I'm begging the question with this because I would say the South has a problem, and that is we're born into cultural Christianity here. And I think the West doesn't, you're not born into it. So when you become a believer, you have to learn how to be a believer. And what I already hear from you is, but it seems, is maturity in, oh, I'm a believer. What does that look like? Where in the South, it's like, oh, here's what it looks like. You vote this way, you dress this way, you act this way. And there's a cultural Christianity that we inherit, and we have to learn to walk our way out of that. But that's another topic. But it feels like you really leaned in to your faith having actions, right? I mean, that's what I'm
Hmm.
hearing. You're out, you're witnessing on the street in your 20s. You're thinking through, how am I going to be in ministry? I still want to make money, but I want to be in ministry. So you want to, I love to hear your thoughts on that. But then I want to know, when you moved to Southern California, did you have to learn that culture of Christianity too? Was it a culture shock, or is it very much the same West Coast, or is there a distinct difference from the North and the South?
Good question. If I get off, you can steer me
Oh,
back.
I don't even know exactly what I asked, but I
Oh,
think
okay,
you give me
yeah.
the, yeah.
I got it. Yeah, well, certainly, in the Pacific Northwest, back in the early 80s, again, this was kind of a movement of God's Spirit. I just call it a delayed reaction. About a decade later, from the Jesus People movement, and my church was a Calvary Chapel plant up there in Southern Oregon. And so for me, it was radical because y- it, it's sort of like culturally, you're either a born again Christian or you're not. And if you're not, then because for me, it was that one day I was walking in darkness. It was, morality wasn't that big of a deal, even as a Catholic, up to a certain point, you might have your limits. Not knowing Christ, for me, the religion I saw was religion without Christ. So when I got saved, it was radical. Wow, I can have a personal relationship with Jesus, and so it was all or nothing. To your point, it really was, and all or nothing. And if you're going to serve Him, you're going to show it. You're going to share your faith. Your friends, a lot of them disappeared. Like, oh my gosh, I met one of my friends at a grocery store, and I said, "Hey, uh, I'm a Christian. He goes, I heard of all people, my gosh, you know,
I
he
heard
didn't,
about this.
yeah, he didn't believe it. He couldn't believe it. My nickname in high school was Wild Bill, and there's a reason for that. And
Yeah,
so when I got saved, it was 180 degrees radical. So yeah, I would say certainly in that movement in the early 80s, if you were a Christian, it was you went from darkness to light, and it was very, very notable.
yeah,
It wasn't like in the South. When I moved here to Texas, I met somebody in the grocery store, and I was sharing Christ with them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, back in the '40s, Uncle Jim was a Baptist pastor in Waco. Yeah, I know all about that. I'm a Christian." And they didn't really understand uh, that we're new creations in Christ. And for me, I had a clear understanding of what it was. Southern
yeah,
California, very similar. I
yeah,
had to relearn a little bit, but for me, I went from a Calvary Chapel to a mega Calvary Chapel in
yeah.
Costa Mesa. And so a lot of similarities, but culturally, the people in Southern California are more loose ended. So it was harder to initially make connections there, even in the church. So,
Yeah, that makes sense. But you felt comfortable with the Calvary Chapel, the theology, uh, um, the methodology, I guess, of a Calvary Chapel, so you stuck with that, and I would say here you are decades later, and you really haven't left that, right? And
no,
you've never really branched off from Calvary Chapel.
no, I haven't. I've certainly tried different movements in different churches. I went to some charismatic churches. Now, some Baptists think that Calvary Chapel is charismatic,
Yeah.
but most charismatics will think they think Calvary Chapel is Baptist. So you know, choose.
There's
So
divide and light. Yeah,
yeah, you know,
okay,
but
fair.
uh, the theology is, you know, it's Genesis to Revelation. They believe what God says in His Word, and that's really the essence of it. So I was very comfortable with that. And up there, we did some of the same things. I met my wife at church. We got married. Again, we immediately were asked to be directors of as volunteers as the missions department. So
Yeah,
get our teams ready for Central America and Africa, we would take them out to Santa Monica, sometimes in Newport Beach Pier,
uh-huh,
and we would witness. And it was the same, very similar to what we had experienced. I had experienced in Southern Oregon, where you're sharing the gospel, and people overall they want to listen. Not everybody would respond,
yeah,
and but a lot of them would listen and they would hear. Some would respond, but again, it was there's light and there's darkness, and it was more defined than here in the southern states, I think.
yeah.
So,
Well, you just opened my mind to a thing I don't know if you and I have ever even talked about. But what I just heard you say was when you were doing mission work, it was evangelical, meaning it's street preachy and like some people go on mission trips and like, hey, we're gonna go hang some drywall
mm,
or we're gonna do whatever. And yours was very evangelical by nature. Is that a Calvary Chapel thing, or is that where your heart is? Like, how did you get into that, or is that the only thing you thought our job was to do was to go preach the gospel?
I think it is what, and partly driven by my heart, because I have been involved with where you go down and build a house and that type of thing. It's kind of ended up being a byproduct of going to, say, Central America and building relationships. So we'd come back down later, but initially it was always for preaching the gospel, sharing Jesus Christ. And because for me, it was the passion that I had in the Calvary chapels that I went to. That's what they did. They just sent out teams to do ministry and in various formats. We would have puppet shows for the kids and films, you know, translated in Spanish and that type of thing.
Yeah,
And then almost every in Central America, every time I would speak, I had a translator. And so I've become very good friends with folks. And you probably have met 6'7", very handsome Jorge Sereno, I think is his name,
yeah.
and
Guatemala.
Santizo,
Yeah,
Jorge Santizo, yeah.
that's right.
And so I've been a lifetime friend with him down
Okay.
there. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So you, um, there's a passion to share the gospel, and then I guess there's once you my opinion is once you get a taste of doing it outside of your backyard, the States, and going overseas, you just to me, you're like your eyes are open like, "Oh, wow, Christianity is done so much different. There are so many cultures." And it just opens your eyes to the possibilities and a calling. It feels like a yearning to go do more of that. It feels like people who are on mission stay on mission, and then
Mm.
people who aren't never even experience it, right? And so I guess you just got the taste and the hunger for it early on. Is that am I correct on that?
Yeah, that I mean, I was, I think, a couple months after uh, giving my life to Jesus Christ, I was ministering, sharing the gospel. Yeah, and I didn't have a clue as to what I was doing.
But you were being faithful to
I
try.
was doing I would say things like, "Follow Jesus because he's good," because I didn't know what else to say.
Yeah. But your life
That's it.
was radically changed,
Yeah,
and it showed, and you wanted other people's life to be radically changed, and you were
yeah,
willing to profess that.
yeah.
So somehow you're balancing making money, and then on your evenings and weekends and your vacation time, you're in ministry. What happened for you to say, "I guess I'm gonna do this full time"? Like, how did you go from Taco Bell, total corporate Fortune 500 world, into a life of ministry? What happened?
I think it was around 1996. uh, Pepsi was moving a lot of their divisions around, and so the division I was a part of, Pepsi Food Service, at that particular time, was moving everybody here in the Dallas area to Frito Lay, and then they have a Pepsi office here, but I think primarily Frito Lay. Of course, I wasn't up. Californians in those days didn't move to Texas. They do it by uh, heard Russian to Texas, but not in those days. Just wasn't heard of. A pastor friend of mine called and said, "Hey, Bill, there's this position at Wycliffe Bible Translators with their Wycliffe Associates arm that I think you might be interested in because it's bringing business together with a ministry." I thought, "Okay, what the heck? I'll try it." After 7 interviews, they hired me. And, it took 7 interviews because they didn't know how to interview people, and that's one of the things they wanted me to teach them how to do when I got on, in the human resources world, and so I did. And I so loved it, Bible translation, and it gave me an outlet to do business and to fulfill the, ministry passion, that I had, that I just thought, "This is it. This is what I wanna do."
Okay.
That's
So
how it all started.
were you in one major role and with Wycliffe, did you change roles? Like what tell me the journey of Wycliffe for you. Like what did you experience there? What kind of growth did you have? And what kind of roles did you do there?
Yeah, they hired me as an HR manager. Uh, this particular branch of Wycliffe, the Wycliffe Associates, they would build through construction, they would build offices and centers around the world. That was the primary thing they did, plus fundraising for Wycliffe Bible Translators. So they brought me in as human resources. Their handbook at that time was emails from the president with 3 hole punches, and you just stick them into a binder. So one of the first things I did was I wrote him a proper HR manual.
Mhm.
But my boss, the president, his name is Martin Hewitt, he's like, "Oh wow, Bill, you've got passion for a lot of other things." So within 3 months, I was promoted to um, director of people and staff services, which included everything from human resources to temporarily, I was over the fundraising arm while we were out looking for somebody to hire. So I actually went out on the road and raised money. We we would serve chicken dinners, and the joke was thousands of chickens give their lives for Bible translation. But back in that day, I think they still do some variation of it, but that was the thing. and then I was over prayer ministry and then staff services, which included anytime missionaries would come home and furlough, you would have uh, practical, pragmatic things for them, bedding and towels and just stuff that you didn't necessarily have the funds to run down to Walmart and buy. And and so within like I said, within 3 months, I started out as one thing, and within 3 months, they gave me all this other stuff. Which then I was my tank was full. I was very fulfilled in what I was doing.
Well, because I'm gonna project myself on
Hmm.
your situation. You and I have had conversations, but once you realize the engine behind what it takes to do ministry, and especially working for a global ministry, you realize, oh, there's a place for me. Like
Yeah,
when you're a kid, you're like, oh, missionaries go, they come back, and we support them, and then we live our lives. And then you realize, no, it's a machine to take the gospel. Sometimes it's an efficient machine, sometimes it's inefficient, sometimes it's complicated, sometimes it's not. But there is a lot to do behind the scenes, and I'm
yeah.
assuming Wycliffe threw you in the deep end of that.
Oh, they did. And when they found out my interest in short-term missions, they said, "Hey, Bill, we've been wanting to put together a short-term missions program for churches to get involved." So I opened my big mouth. I said, "Well, I know how to do that." Because for them, a short-term mission was 2 years, a 2-year assignment. And that, for lifers, that really is a short-term missions. And so we put together 1 and 2 week, and we used the center. They had their first center I think they ever had was in Guatemala. And so we used that as a test region for prayer ministry, building, maintenance, and then we would do childcare, and they would have Wycliffe conferences there. And so it was those four venues is what they started with. So it was really neat to be in the startup of that whole program. So
So I hear and hear a little of international travel. Were you
yes,
always on the road?
often, yeah, yeah,
Different parts of the world? Like, did you start something I didn't mention a minute ago, but I feel like once people get the bug to travel, there's that, and then there's also a heart for an area. Did you gain a favorite place or a certain culture that you just like, that's the one that really gets me? Tell me a little bit about your experiences there.
yeah. It's a great question. Initially, because of the church where Nancy, my wife, and I were the missions directors, we did a lot in Mexico and Guatemala. So I really did gain a heart for the culture, the Latino culture, and the people. We also went to Africa. We spent a month there. Actually, Nancy and I were single and just getting to know each other. And after that trip, on the trip in Africa, one day, you could make a movie out of it, what, out of Africa or something. The sun hit her, and I thought, "Oh my gosh, this beautiful young lady is serving God with the same passion I have. Who knows? Maybe I'll marry her."
Yeah.
Sure enough, we came back and got married, and
Wow.
so Africa certainly. Uh, but where I really got the bug for travel, I didn't mention this. Going back before I moved to California, my aunt and uncle lived in Greece. They were in the military, and they said, "Hey, Bill, you better come over and before you get married and spend some time with us and just see Europe." And so I did. For 3 months, I stayed at their place in Greece as a home base, and I traveled to Europe. My church went to Israel, and I took my first trip to Israel, met them there. And so from that point on, I so had a bug for travel. I even looked into starting my own travel agency. And the reason I didn't go forward with it was the PC, the personal computers were coming online at that point, and they said there wasn't a real future
Yeah.
for travel agencies. So I ended up in ministry anyway. So it all
Right,
worked
right.
out. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's very interesting. Okay, so tell me what happened to have you leave Wycliffe, but I'm assuming whatever that answer is, you didn't go to a for-profit job. You stayed in ministry, or how did that transition go, and where did you go?
Yes. So Wycliffe, they came to me and we knew they were talking about building their permanent headquarters in the Orlando, Florida area. And we weren't sure if our branch office would end up there. Well, sure enough, they were pulling everybody together. So my boss said, "Hey, why don't you go out, you and Nancy, and check it out? We would really like you to move with the ministry." We were thinking, Florida? I just can't imagine. So we went out. Our children were toddlers, and we were trying to imagine. We thought, well, we always wanted horses. And we thought, in Florida, maybe we could have a horse, live in the country a little bit. Well, we got there, and it's so humid, as you know, you've been there, terribly humid. We were looking at some housing that Wycliffe had set us up with the realtor, and we were looking around, and my wife said, "Hey, Bill, what's that trotting down the sidewalk?" And I said, "Oh my gosh, it's an alligator." And it was trotting toward us, and Nancy just said, "I think God just spoke to us. We're not moving here because we had babies." So
Yeah, we don't need to pray over this.
and we
There's
didn't, yeah.
our answer.
And it was funny because the Wycliffe missionaries at that time, they said, "Hey, it's not that bad relocating to Orlando. You just teach your kids to zigzag and climb." And the idea was just that you run in a zigzag form because a bull alligator can run up to 35, 40 miles an hour, but he can't make quick turns and he can't climb a tree. And we thought, well, shoot, that solves the problem. But
Not.
no. So we went back. 2 weeks later, a headhunter called me and said, "Hey, Bill, how would you like to work for Chuck Swindoll and Insight for Living?" And my response was, "Well, they don't have an international focus, so I don't think I would be interested in that." And they said, "Well, they have a little bit of one. Give it some thought and give me a call back." Another 2 weeks went by, and I couldn't shake the idea of. I thought, you know what, I need to at least hear what they have to say. So I called the headhunter back, and she invited me out, and the rest was history.
Wow.
And I ended up working for Insight for Living.
You've done everything under the sun there like you were at Wycliffe.
Yeah.
You managed, run, improved so many departments, so many procedures, HR, IT, international. You've done it all, and they've benefited from you greatly to say the least. Um, and I'm gonna have to interject this here. Somewhere along the way, you decided, "Oh, I don't have enough to do," and you started a church? Like, what
Yes.
you got to explain this. What would make somebody who is I know you're an entrepreneur on the side already, and then to say, "I have a heart to be a pastor?" How did this how did this go?
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? If
So when
somebody
you
would
say it this way, yes.
I I'm still in therapy over it. Um, yeah, the working for Wycliffe and then Insight for Living had great fulfillment. The part that I was lacking in my life was the ministry part of being involved in people's lives, where it hurts, where, there's, pain in people's lives, and, where I can come along and say, "But Jesus is the answer." And I still didn't have that in my life, even working, for a world, renowned ministry, which has just been, nothing but wonderful in every way. And that was the one piece, and we lived far enough out at the time that to commute down to Frisco, Texas was quite a drive back in those days. And so I went to Calvary Chapel and said, "Would you guys be interested in starting a Calvary Chapel out in the country? I think one would do well out there." And they said, "We hadn't thought about it, but because you're interested here, here's the baton, go." Go start one. So I did. And I became affiliated as a Calvary Chapel pastor. It's quite a process that you go through. And we started out in our home with Bible studies, and then from there moved into a former feed store, and so we've been there for over 15 years in that feed store, and
You've been doing that for 15 years, some
yeah,
people about being a tent maker and then a pastor, and you're all of them. You're a tent maker,
yeah,
pastor, a work in ministry, which honestly, it's part of the reason I'm even talking to you today, and because I want people to hear. It's like you literally live a life on mission, and it's very thought out. It's not random. Like you have chosen to live on mission, and you have a full plate. And so to me, that's admirable. But where I get um I see you as a role model is you're always calm, cool, and collected. Like if I lived your life, I'd have no fingernails. I'd probably pull my hair out. It just you really have, I'm gonna say mastered, but mastered the ups and downs and challenges and busy schedules. Like you manage that well. And so that's my question is, are you wired for it? Do you have to work at it? Does your wife and you have to have your own therapy to just say, okay, help me decompress? Like, how do you manage it? And what do you learn to say no to? And how do you do it? Because I don't think I could do what you do. Your schedule and your level of responsibility are very big, and you do it well. So, what's your secret?
Well, thank you. I think all of the above, really. I mean, compartmentalizing is important. Um, when I am at Insight for Living, I focus on Insight for Living. Uh, in the evenings and weekends, I focus on Calvary Chapel. And that does, in all honesty, it helps that we're a smaller church. We're under 100 people. So that makes it manageable. However, will say this, preparing a sermon for 60 plus people, there's no less work in it.
Right.
I have we have less staff at the church, so it does require more from Nancy and I. But we do have some fantastic elders, and they teach on Sundays. So I might only teach now. When we first started, I taught every Sunday, and at that time, I was filling in temporarily for the international department in Insight for Living, as you remember. But that temporary ended up being 7.5 years. That was the most difficult time for me because those are both huge focuses, right?
Yeah.
But I immediately understood that it's so important to have utilize the people that God puts in your life to help equip them, to help mentor them. So mentoring became a big deal for me at that point for in both ministries. And so I've always utilized people who are being mentored to step into the pulpit. And uh, and so we've been very blessed at the church to have some elders who are very, very qualified, and
Yeah.
they all four of them teach. We have four right now, and they get up and teach. And so right now, it's like I said, 1 or 2 Sundays a month that I actually teach, and so that helps a lot. And then here at Insight for Living, same way. I believe in mentoring people and then letting them uh, try their wings, let them fly. Let's see
Yeah.
what they can do. Even if they make mistakes, that's okay. Let's get them out there and let them do. So that's probably for me one of the key to my successes. The others would be realizing that I can't carry all of it. That isn't just, it sounds good. It sounds like a Christian ease or whatever, but it really, I learned to actually apply it and live it and to draw boundaries. I learned to say no. That wasn't always easy. And,
Yeah.
uh, and at the church, a lot of times people, we're a small church pastor. Why don't we do this, that, or the other? And why don't we have this great youth outreach? And I'll listen patiently, and then I'll ask them, "Do you feel called to do that?" And they're like, "Well, no." And I'm like, "Gosh, what a coincidence! I don't either." And they're like, "But you're the pastor, you know."
Yeah.
And I just tell them what I do is what I do, and
Yeah.
we're always looking for God to bring somebody else in to help us with these other areas. And I've turned people away. Hey, we can't fulfill that goal. So maybe First Baptist or Stonebriar Church or wherever, maybe that's where your family needs to go to meet that need that you have. And so that's in a kind of a quick nutshell. That's one of the ways I balance it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say you're content with slow.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. You're
Yep,
like, I'm
exactly.
not. You're trying to run the marathon, not win these little short things, and you're very you thought about your answers before somebody even asked. I think
Yes.
that's what I hear.
Yeah.
You answered a question I was going to ask, but I'm still going to ask it because I was going to mention, on top of everything else, you also put into your life mentoring. I've seen you do it for
Mm.
2 decades now, but I think you sort of answered. Part of that is passion. Part of that's necessity.
Mhm.
That you need it. You realize the downline is the way you can do more because but you pour into people in a very methodical way. You give your time and energy to it. It's not, hey, come by if you have a problem. Like, you spend time with people and you invest in them. And to your point, I also see you encourage them to fly and fail, and you don't beat them up when they fail. You pour into them and help them back up, and you're a really good mentor. But more than being good, you're faithful to it. And so I just wanted you to talk a little bit more about that. I see now why you do it, but there's still passion there. That's not just
Mm.
practical.
Yeah, no, that's very true. The foundation of it really is passion. I think I always remember back to when, Mrs. Zebedee, uh, the sons of thunder's mother, came to Jesus in Matthew, I think, chapter 11, said, "Hey, Jesus, I'm gonna ask you something." And he's like, "Okay, how can I help you?" "These 2 sons of mine command that one will sit on my left side and one on my right side." And I just love it. The other disciples are going nuts, ballistic, like, "How arrogant." You get your mother in there to try to get position in the kingdom of God. My goodness. And of course, you know the response. Jesus was like, number one, you don't know what you're asking because only God can fill those positions. But number two, can you s- uh, carry this cup that I'm going to carry? And they said, yes, we can. And he said, yeah, you will carry that cup. But he said, and of course, by this time, the disciples are indignant, absolutely indignant. And Jesus is like, okay, look, the Gentiles and their leadership, they lord it over one another. But it's not that way with you. It's not going to be that way. If you want to serve in my kingdom or lead, you're going to have to serve. So that's always been the foundation of my serving in leadership, has been that understanding that I need to serve others. And so if I have somebody reporting to me, what good is it if they report to me and then if I left tomorrow, they couldn't go on, carry on. It would not be good. It would be poor stewardship on my part. And so I think that's part of the drive too, is realizing that ministry is, it really includes developing
Yeah.
uh, tomorrow, the leaders of tomorrow, the hope of tomorrow. It's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah.
And so,
I like that. Now, I don't want you to have to play your hand to your employer, but what do you see? I've heard there's phrases like, "What Christianity? You can't retire. You can retire from a job, but you can't retire from Christianity." Your life is so weaved in with ministry. What do you see the next 20, 30 years? Like, do you have a plan, or is it one day at a time? Do you want to die an old country pastor till the bitter end, or do you want to travel more? Like, what are you wanting? Are you aiming at anything, or are you just right where the Lord wants you, and that's good enough?
yeah, again, it's a little bit of all of the above, I guess. Primarily, the last thing you said, it's I'm right where I'm supposed to be. So for now, that needs to be okay, because it really is one day at a time. And yet there is wisdom and planning and thinking about the future. Um, my boss here at Insight retired from his church at 90, but he didn't retire. He still, as you know, does podcasts almost weekly.
Uh-huh.
And at first, he didn't know what a podcast was. You probably had to tell him what one was, but he now does it. So I think, and I look at that and think, okay, he's my mentor. He's my example. My dad was the same way. He died at 85, but he worked in his accounting business up to 2 weeks before he died because he didn't want to just sit in a rocking chair. So I look at it twofold. Whether I continue doing exactly what I'm doing now for 20 years or not, that I don't know. It's unlikely.
Mm,
But what I don't can't imagine is that my passion for serving the Lord Jesus, my Savior, any less.
mhm.
And so you pray and you ponder, yet at the end of the day, uh, you put your hand to the plow for what's required of you now. So I don't know if that answers your question
No,
specifically, but yeah.
no, it's a great one. I'm gonna wrap up, but it's not gonna
Mhm.
take a minute. This wrap up is a deep wrap up because I really want to pick your brain and answer as long as it takes. But you having grown up in the I'm returning to a
Mhm.
thing we talked about 30 plus minutes ago. Having grown up in the Pacific Northwest, having lived now considerable time of your life here in Texas, and having traveled, I'm going to start with the Northwest versus Texas. What do you wish the people of the Northwest knew about Christianity that Southerns know? And then flip-flop. What do you wish the people, of Texas knew that the people in the Northwest execute well? Like, what versions of Christianity are the good ones, and what frustrates you about the Christianity in the areas that you live? That's a loaded question. I don't want to get you in trouble with your flock, but you get the gist because you've traveled well enough. You're like, there are different cultures with under Christianity, and you being well traveled, because my next question is, what do you see between Americans and the rest of the world, and what do you wish they knew? So I'm letting you know where this is headed.
Okay, that's a great yeah. Thank you. Very loaded question, but a good one. And there is a difference. It's like here in Texas, being the Bible Belt. I've been here for 20 years, so I have seen changes. It
Mhm,
is morphine because part of it is you have a lot of people from the East Coast, the West Coast, the North, wherever moving in to the area, and so there is naturally going to be cultural and societal changes. Off the top, I would say the biggest difference uh, here in the South that I think would be advantageous for believers in the North is in the South, education is everything. Here in Texas, most kids graduate from school. You're going to go to Texas A&M or wherever UT or something like that. In Oregon, they don't put as much emphasis on education for Christians, young people. I would say that was one difference. I think it's more, for lack of a better word, maybe more charismatic on the West Coast, as far as just because of the sheer passion
mhm,
for Jesus and what He's done and how He's changed my life and and this type of thing. And you see it. I recently was traveling in the West Coast and slipped away one day. I was doing some writing. My wife and adult children were hiking, and I thought, I'm going to go to this local church. And of course, it was a Calvary Chapel. The huge difference from the South to out in the North and the West was the people were absolutely passionate. You walked into it. And again, Calvary Chapels specifically, it's my world, so that's why I'm talking about it. And they're not considered like wild and crazy charismatics. But I walked into that place and these people were excited about Jesus. And so it shows in their worship, it shows in their greeting and talking to one another, and in the delivery of the word. So I wish that the South would pick up on that a little more, I guess,
agreed.
that type of thing. Yeah. So those are the two big, if you're going to go very high level,
Yeah,
in my
yeah.
estimation. Yeah.
It's interesting. I'm gonna double down on that. As the
Hmm.
church I have found that I worship at, that is the thing, and I didn't really know it.
Hmm.
Now you're saying, I'm like, oh, that is 100% it. But I've visited some churches, and it's the old joke of I have joy, joy, joy. It's like, no, you don't. You're just singing it. Yeah, but do you have it?
Yeah.
And I was
Right.
thinking, oh, my church right now, if they were singing that song, hands would be in the air, and there would be literal joy
Yeah.
of the gospel, and not just uh, the habit of just living in the culture of, oh, I'm a Christian, here's what Christians do. We sing about joy. Well,
Yeah.
no, like why didn't it flow out of you? So you do
Yeah.
not know you've been redeemed. Like, and don't you want the world to know? Wouldn't that make you passionate to tell the next guy
Yeah.
if it's authentic?
And that's the key, the authenticity. Very, very important because religion can look charismatic. We know that. And so when it's the genuine uh, enthusiasm, there's nothing like it
No, it's
for the things of God.
it's
Yeah,
contagious.
it is absolutely contagious. And, I always would joke, okay, I grew up with a dad who was a football nut, and he'd take me to games as a kid, and that was, kind of exciting. But at the house, we had two TVs, one in the family room, one in the living room. They'd each have a different game. And then the stereo system was on the third game, a local college or high school.
Okay.
And he would get excited about it and, emotional and, oh, bad call or good call. And yet my experience growing up in the church in a religion, what I would say in my experience anyway, a religion without Christ was very deadpan.
Yeah.
And when the offering plate was handed, all you could hear was little coins going ching, ching, ching. That's all you could hear. No enthusiasm. So when I got saved, it was like, oh my gosh, Jesus is somebody to be excited about, somebody to passionately serve. And so that was the difference for me.
Uh, so I think we probably already answered the difference between the states and international, but any thoughts of that? Like, what do you enjoy? Because I love watching worship happen. I know that's a big word, so I guess I partially mean through song, in other cultures, but just seeing Christianity done differently, it to me, it opens your eyes of like, wow, what am I seeing versus what I see at home? And you've traveled way more than I have. Like, what is your answer to that? Or is the answer depends? The Middle East is done one way, the Far East is done another, Africa's done another. But what are your thoughts on the difference of Christianity here in the States versus abroad? Or is that too big of a question?
Yeah, part of it is I would say it depends, I suppose, because each region of the country, and you know, I have been in most, you have been in most. One of the things, though, that really stands out as a difference in so many of the countries is they don't take their Christianity maybe as for granted, especially in places that we have been, like in China and places like that, where every day you're just, if you can get together and worship with brothers and sisters in Christ, that's man, that's something very special. Where for here, because we have the wonderful, amazing freedom that we have, we take it for granted oftentimes. And it's not necessarily a wrong thing, it's just the reality, I think. Uh, the most recent church I've spoke at was 3 years ago, and that was in, I think, Poland, a church, evangelical church in Poland. And I had such of a blast, and partly it's because I'm from America and I could just stand up and say, Jesus said, and they're going to get all excited. In Poland, they're more, the further north you go in Europe, the more conservative they are. So it's not like I was preaching in Italy or Greece or something, but they were pulling on me. They were excited about what I was saying. And most of the young people knew enough English that they were just drawn upon it. But I saw that though in their Christian day-to-day interaction with each other, just a passion and an appreciation for one another. Uh, it seems like, from what I can tell, less bickering. They still have it because they're human.
Right.
Maybe a little less bickering because it hasn't been that long, like in Poland, that they've 40 years that they've been have the freedom to be the church in the way that they do now.
Yeah.
So that's part of it.
Yeah, I'll sum that. I believe they cherish God's word,
Mhm. Yeah.
their time together, and even their ability to execute their faith more than we do. And I think it's
Yes.
probably because it's old hat for us because we grew up in a Christian nation and you don't cherish things that there's one on every street corner.
Yeah.
And it's I wish we could inherit it. And I think I'll repeat what I said. I think when you travel, it gives you the appreciation to see it, where we just don't get that sitting in our pews in our own churches,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm going to end on a practical. You're going to give some advice. So for those listening, Bill went on and you're going to correct me here, 6 week trip, and you went to 2 or 3 continents and 4 or 5 places in the middle of winter. It was a very busy trip, and you did it on one carry-on, and you had to dress up in suits and carry jackets. So you're going to give out the listeners a travel tip. How do you do it? Because I remember you going, and I thought, how many pieces of luggage are you taking? And you said, oh, just a carry-on. And I thought, what does this man do? Just keep his toothbrush in his back pocket? How do you do it? What's your international travel tip? Because I still don't know how you do it.
That's always, people always give me a hard time about that, but it works. The first time I went to Europe uh, in the 1980s and spent 3 months there, I took everything but the kitchen sink, as the old saying goes. I mean, literally. And I didn't end up using half the stuff. And I thought, well, this is ridiculous.
Yeah,
Uh, then a few years later, when I was married, my mother-in-law actually is the one that taught me. She would go to Europe with a handbag over her shoulders. And I said, okay, how you doing that? And she
yeah,
would say, well, every day in a hotel, she goes, I don't mind hand washing socks and underwear in the sink and just putting them up on the towel rack to dry.
yeah.
She goes, I'd rather do that than to lug these big bags around. And so I took note.
Mhm.
And so it's just very pragmatic, that
Yeah.
type of thing. Yeah.
So,
And
but jackets, you just wear your jacket and
yeah,
yeah,
I wear, so when I go on the airplane, usually the air in those airplanes are cold anyway. I wear it on.
yeah.
And then if I get hot, I fold it up, just stick it up with my carry-on, and I'm good to go.
You did it in the dead and I think you went to Russia and Poland too,
Mhm. Yeah,
and you had to preach and you had suits and like,
yeah,
oh, just preparing for one Sunday, I would have had a whole luggage full for one
yeah,
Sunday.
yeah, what you do is I look at, okay, this one pair of slacks is gonna go with these 3 shirts or whatever it is, you know? And then occasionally you're at a hotel that has laundry, and so on that particular trip, I think I did laundry, 2 or 3 times, at a hotel, and that also helps. But what we were traveling and it was in April, we thought, "Okay, we're going to China," several places in China, Beijing, Shanghai, Hong Kong. Then we were gonna fly to Paris because we had to go down to, at the time, Transworld Radio was in, uh, the south of France, Monte Carlo. And so we went down there thinking, "Oh, wow, we'll jump in the Mediterranean, swim. It's April, it's gotta be nice." Well, it snowed in Monte Carlo.
Did you
So
get
we
in? No?
didn't swim. Then we went to St. Petersburg, and they had 6 feet of snow. It was a late winter, and from St. Petersburg to Moscow was packed snow. I'd never seen such deep snow. And so at that point, I just wore layers, about 4 shirts and a jacket, and it somehow worked.
That is hilarious. Alright,
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna do this, but we're gonna end on a story because 'cause I'm gonna let you give your side because I tell this story all the time, and you never get to defend yourself, so I'm gonna give you an opportunity. But here's how this goes. I had just had surgery, and I'm sitting under doctor's orders, laying on a recliner with an ice pack on me, and, I get a phone call from Bill, and Bill goes, "Todd, I need you to go to Canada with me." And I go, "I don't even know if I'm allowed to go." And you're like, "I really need you to go because we had a policy with travel,
Mhm.
you don't travel alone, or you can't travel with the opposite sex, and then plus whatever was going on, you needed me or you thought you
Mhm.
did." And I said, "Well, Bill, I gotta call my doctor, like, I mean, it's not that I don't wanna go, I don't even think I'm allowed to get out of this chair right now." And I called the doctor and he goes, "Well, you can go, but you can't carry." anything. Like, you can go walk slow, blah, 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 but, don't lift anything. So I called you back and I said, Bill, I can go, but here are the rules. And I go, "Would you carry my luggage for me?" And you go, of course, you're like, "Sure, Todd, I'll carry your luggage." So I hang up and I think about it. And I'm like, how can I make this hard on Bill? How can I how can I make Bill's life miserable? And I thought, oh, my great grandmother gave me one of those paisley pink suitcases with no wheels, and it's in the attic. So I go holler at my son. I go, "Hey, go up to the attic and go find that. Go back to the corner. There's probably a black widow back there in the deep dark bowels of our closet. You're going to find this ugly non-roller suitcase. Go bring it down for me." And he did. And I filled that thing up. And I think we were only going for a couple days. I had room left, and I might have thrown a brick in there. I mean, I may have put something heavy in there just because. And I laid it, or I had my kids laid on the front door, and you showed up, and I remember you just looked at me with this look of just shaking your head, like, "Okay, all right, this is what we're gonna do here." So, to me, that was the joke. Well, because you're such a big traveler and a big mentor, you were always giving me advice of how to travel well. Like, hey, when you go to a country, if you say they're for business, here's what's going to happen. If you don't, it's going to help with customs. And so you're like, just, we always do personal stuff on all the trips. So we're not lying because I fill out a policy. Hey, when you're somewhere, go be part of the culture. Take the person you're with out and spend time. And so it wasn't a lie. It's just we were there for both, but don't say both. So you and I are checking in through a passport, and I thought, well, he's got my luggage. I'm just going to walk with him up there because you're carrying a paisley luggage. You're rolling yours, and we walk up, and they look up and they go, "Business for pleasure," and I just lean in and say, "Pleasure." And I decided to put my arm around Bill just to make it awkward. Well, I had no idea. They said, "Where are you staying?" And you go, "A bed and breakfast," because I didn't know where you had planned. I thought we were going to, I thought we were going to a hotel. And you said, um,
It was Sweet
"Yeah, bed and
Dreams.
breakfast." And they go, "What was it?"
Yeah,
You go, "Sweet Dreams." And I lost, I lost it. I lost it so much. The guy just sort of handed our passport, like, "You two have fun." I'm like, "Oh, we
yeah.
will." I laugh about that all the time. I wish I could do that joke to you every single day of my life, but I didn't know. I've been telling that you joke for 15 years, but I don't know if you ever even mentioned it, or I'm the only one out in the world saying it.
Oh, I use it in sermons all the time.
Oh, well, don't be a jerk to your brother.
Yeah.
Love your brother better.
One correction. It wasn't paisley. It had pink roses on it, just so the audience understands. It was
It was a girl. It was
it
very
was it
feminine.
was definitely grandma's feminine suitcase. And we were totally blindsided where because the office up in Canada, they said, "Oh, one of our donors has a bed and breakfast called Sweet Dreams." And we thought, "Great, we'll take it." And so, yeah, it was a big setup. I didn't know you, purposely grabbed that. I thought, "Doesn't this guy I'm gonna have to buy
Doesn't
him
he
a
own something
suitcase."
better? Oh no, I went to the deep dark bowels of the thing, and I thought I need to grab a Kroger's bag, or I was gonna
Yeah.
grab something flimsy and, and not even luggage. And I thought, no, 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 the luggage is better.
Well, aren't you glad you took that trip, though? Wasn't that fun?
I don't know. It was. You and I have been around. We've been
Yeah.
to Israel together. I don't UK, China. I don't know. We've been everywhere. I don't even. I don't think I can count
Australia.
Australia, where
Yeah.
I had the worst jet lag of my life.
Oh,
I woke up from jet lag, and I remember thinking, am I in my mother's womb? Like, I didn't know my name. I didn't know where I was. It was dark, and I was like, "Who am I? How old am I?"
yeah,
It took me minutes to even get my
yeah,
bearing where I
yeah,
was.
that's a rough trip. They should sedate you like space travel, just to
Yes.
get to Australia. It's
Oh, it was
yeah,
miserable. I still, and I'll finish with this. And that same flight, you and I were on in Los Angeles, getting on the flight, and there was a guy next to us because we had got the long leg room, but it's still we weren't allowed to fly first class, so we were back in with the normal folk, but we got good leg room because you and I are fairly tall.
yeah.
And a guy was sitting next to us, and he did not move. I had to do the finger under his nose to see if he was breathing. He took the whole flight, didn't go to the restroom, didn't eat, didn't watch a movie. He was falling asleep when we got on the plane, and I had to wake him up when we got there, and I said, "We're here." And to this day, I'm like, I don't know what pill that guy swallowed, but it was a horse tranquilizer, whatever it was. I still think about the every time I get on a
Oh yeah.
plane, think about that guy.
But I remember when we landed, he jumped up like we're like, how did that corpse just come alive? It
Yeah,
was crazy.
alive.
Yeah.
You remember one more thing real quick? On that same trip, international trips, you remember because they're a
Hmm.
thing. I remember sleeping, watching a movie. You go to the restroom, you sort of plan your deal, and you slept for like 6 hours. And I looked over and I go, "How did you do that?" And you pulled out a pill and you go, "Oh, I forgot to give this to you." You had two of them. You took one and you didn't give me mine. And
Yeah.
so you slept and I was just up
Yeah.
watching movies all night.
Yeah. That was your pill. So I think I used it on the way back. But
Yeah,
yeah.
maybe. Bill, thank you for taking the
Yeah.
time. I'm glad I know you. I hope our audience gets to know you. And you are a great example of someone who serves faithfully, that you don't need to be in the spotlight. You don't want to be in the spotlight, but you serve well. You are intentional in all that you do, and it's admirable. And I call it an honest privilege to be your friend. And I thank you for taking the time. Thank you for being a good friend and a good follower of Christ.
You bet. And likewise, Todd, I just have enjoyed knowing you through the years and will enjoy knowing you for eternity, of course. And you're a friend indeed. So
Yeah, can't
it
wait
was,
to spend eternity with you. But let's hang out more while we're here.
yeah, absolutely.
All right, blessings, brother.
All right. Thank you, Todd.